Welcome back to my channel Celeb Buzz. Please share and subscribe and press the bell icon for new updates.
In 91, Pat Boone finally tells the truth about Elvis Presley. Pat Boone was born Charles Eugene Boone on June 1, 1934 in Jacksonville, Florida. He is one of America's most lasting and talented entertainers. He was known for being clean-cut, charming, faithful, and able to change with the times. He grew up in Nashville, Tennessee. Boone learned strong Southern values and Christian beliefs. These became very important in his personal life and his career. He went to David Lipscomb College, now called David Lipscomb University and North Texas State University. Then he finished college at Columbia University with a degree in speech and English. His education helped him become polished on stage and speak really well. Boone first became famous in the 1950s. This was a very important time when rock and roll music was just starting and changing everything. He quickly became famous as a clean-cut choice instead of the rebellious singers like Elvis Presley. People knew him for his smooth singing voice and wholesome image. Boone started his career by recording new versions of rhythm and blues songs that were first sung by black artists. Some people praised this because it brought R&B music to white audiences, but other people criticized it for taking music from black culture. Even so, his versions like Ain't That a Shame first by Fats Domino, Tutti Frutti by Little Richard, and I Almost Lost My Mind by Ivory Joe Hunter became huge hits. They introduced many people to types of music they might never have heard before. By the late 1950s, Boone had become one of the biggest stars in American music. He had more than 38 songs make it to the top 40 charts. He sold over 45 million records. It had 6 #1 hit songs. Smooth, slow songs and romantic singing won the hearts of millions of people. His squeaky clean image made him a favorite among parents who didn't trust rock and roll music. Pat Boone's popularity didn't go away quickly. He was second only to Elvis Presley in how successful his songs were during that decade. He even had almost as many fans as Elvis did. Boone's success wasn't just on the radio charts. He became popular on television, too. He hosted his own variety show called the Pat Boone Chevy Showroom. From 1957 to 1960. This weekly TV program showed both famous and new musical talent. It made Boone even more of a household name, besides his success in music and television. Pat Boone also had a career in movies. He starred in more than a dozen films, including April Love, 1957, Bernadine, 1957, Journey to the Center of the Earth, 1959, and State Fair, 1962. His acting roles were a lot like his public image, respectable, romantic, and morally good. This helped keep people liking him during a time when what people liked was starting to change. Hollywood loved Boone as the perfect leading man for movies about young people that made you feel good. He was also known for refusing to take parts in movies that went against his personal values. This sometimes meant he got fewer opportunities, but it also made his brand as a wholesome icon stronger. Pat Boone's influence went far beyond just entertainment. As a devoted Christian, he used his fame to talk about faith-based values. He often appeared at religious events and wrote books about Christian living, family, and personal morality. He wrote several best-selling books, including Twixt 12 and 20, a guide for teenagers. This book sold millions of copies and really connected with both teenagers and their parents. He also got involved in various charity work and political causes, especially those that matched conservative and religious ideas. Boone was never afraid to say what he thought, even when his opinions were different from what most people thought. He often used his celebrity status to influence debates about moral and cultural issues. In the 1990s, Boone surprised fans and critics when he released In a Metal Mood, No More Mr. Nice Guy. This was an album of heavy metal cover songs performed in his classic crooning style. Dressed in black leather, Boone appeared on the American Music Awards and got a lot of media attention. While the album was meant to be funny and was an affectionate tribute to rock and metal classics, it showed Boone's ability to reinvent himself and his willingness to take risks even late in his career. Despite mixed reactions, the album became a cult hit and introduced him to a younger generation of fans. Over his many-decade career, Pat Boone achieved a remarkable list of accomplishments. He sold more than 50 million records, recorded over 2,300 songs, had multiple gold albums, and built a reputation as one of the most influential crossover artists in American pop music. But beyond the numbers is a legacy built on integrity, consistency, and faith. Boone's refusal to compromise his values to become more famous became a defining part of who he was. Unlike many stars of his time, whose careers were ruined by scandal or excess, Boone kept a steady and scandal-free life. He stayed married to his high school sweetheart, Shirley Foley, daughter of country music legend Red Foley, until she died in 2019 after 65 years of marriage. Together, they had 4 daughters, including Debbie Boone, who became musically successful. In her own right, with the hit You Light Up My Life, Pat Boone's life and career represent a time in entertainment that's gone now. It was a time when artists were judged not only by their talent, but by the values they stood for. In many ways, he remains a symbol of wholesome American culture. He's often remembered more for what he stood for than for any particular performance or record. Yet, it would be unfair to overlook his enormous contributions to making early rock and roll popular. A tease, success across multiple types of media, and his pioneering role as a crossover artist. As of the 2020s, Pat Boone has continued to perform, speak, and advocate for causes he believes in. Now in his 90s, he remains a spirited and well-spoken person. He offers thoughts on music, life, and faith, his ability to stay in the public eye and remain culturally relevant despite changing times and shifting norms shows both his talent and determination now in the final years of an extraordinary life and career. 91-year-old Pat Boone, the iconic American singer, actor, and author, has opened up with honest thoughts about his complex and often misunderstood relationship with one of the most legendary figures in music history, Elvis Presley. For decades, fans and music historians have wondered about the true nature of the relationship between Boone and Presley. They were 2 towering figures of the 1950s who helped shape the rock and roll revolution. While both were young, charismatic, and chart-topping performers who found themselves at the center of America's cultural change, their paths were very different in style, image, and personal beliefs. In recent years, Boone has felt a growing desire to set the record straight. With the clarity and wisdom that comes from a life well lived, he has begun to share more personal stories, unspoken feelings, and observations about Presley that he had kept private before. He did this out of respect for his fellow entertainer. And because of the intense public attention that surrounded them both, Boone describes how during the peak of their careers, the media often exaggerated or made up stories of rivalry between them. This created a story of competition that was far more sensational than what was actually true. Boone now reveals that he had always admired Elvis for his raw talent, deep commitment to music, and the sheer magnetism he brought to the stage. Remembers early meetings with Presley at recording studios and television shows. He describes him as surprisingly shy off stage but fiercely dedicated to his craft. Boone was one of the few people in the industry who recognized early on that Elvis wasn't just someone who set trends or a heartthrob. He was a revolutionary force who would leave a permanent mark on American culture. Yet Boone also acknowledges the ways their careers went in different directions. While Pat built his reputation on clean-cut, wholesome performances that matched his devout Christian upbringing, Elvis embraced a bolder, more rebellious image that made him an icon of youth defiance and sexual liberation. Boone reflects, honestly, on how this contrast affected their public images. He notes that while he was often seen as the safe alternative to Presley, he never resented the king of rock and roll's popularity. In fact, he often felt that Elvis's success opened doors for other performers, including himself, by expanding the boundaries of what popular music could be. In telling the truth now, Boone also shares his deeper sadness over the tragic path of Elvis's life. He admits that he was heartbroken by Presley's slow decline into addiction and isolation, especially knowing how much pressure came with being a larger-than-life figure. Boone remembers wishing that he could have helped Elvis more. Perhaps if there had been more honest conversations, more grounding friendships, or more spiritual guidance, the outcome could have been different. Boone, a lifelong advocate of faith-based living, expresses his belief that Elvis was searching for something deeper, a connection to God, to purpose, to peace. but he was too often surrounded by people who fed his fame instead of nourishing his soul. Boone now admits that although he initially underestimated Elvis's staying power, he quickly came to respect the depth of his musical genius and emotional expressiveness. Elvis had something raw, something you couldn't teach, Boone reveals. He tapped into something primal that spoke directly to people's hearts and souls. He wasn't just a performer, he was a phenomenon. In his reflections, Boone describes moments of genuine friendship, casual conversations about faith, fame, and the pressures of sudden stardom, shared performances on early television shows, and even late-night phone calls in which both men confided their fears and dreams. Pat Boone also acknowledges the ways their careers diverged, not just musically, but spiritually. A devout Christian throughout his life, Boone remained rooted in traditional values and often used his platform to promote moral themes. Meanwhile, Elvis wrestled more publicly with inner demons, fame, and personal turmoil. Still, Boone refuses to judge. Instead, he offers empathy and insight into the toll that stardom took on Elvis, calling him a sensitive soul crushed by the weight of being larger than life. Boone's late-life reflections are filled with a mix of admiration, sorrow, and gratitude. He speaks of Elvis not just as a cultural icon, but as a vulnerable man, brilliant, tormented, generous, and misunderstood. It took me a long time to see past the glitter and noise, Boone confesses. But when I did, I saw someone who longed for peace, for love, for a place to rest. I wish we had talked more. In the end, I wish I could have helped him. Now, as Boone looks back on a friendship that was more subtle and respectful than sensational, he finds peace in remembering the moments of kindness, admiration, and quiet understanding they shared. Elvis was a good man, Boone has said in recent interviews, his voice heavy with emotion. He had a beautiful heart. He struggled like we all do, only his struggles were played out in front of the world. I wish more people had seen the real Elvis, not just the performer, but the person. For Pat Boone, speaking the truth about Elvis at this stage of life is not just about settling old myths. It's about honoring a fellow artist who, despite personal demons and public pressures, changed the world with his music. And in doing so, Boone also reaffirms his own legacy, not just as a performer who once rivaled Presley on the charts, but as a man of compassion, faith, and enduring honesty. Pat Boone's remarkable music career spans decades and stands out as one of the most prolific in the history of popular music. Over the course of his extraordinary journey as a recording artist, it is estimated that he has officially recorded more than 2,600 tracks. This staggering number not only highlights his incredible work ethic and dedication to his craft, but also shows his versatility and prolific output. To put this achievement into perspective, very few artists, regardless of genre or era, have managed to collect such a vast catalog of recorded songs. Boone's extensive discography reflects an artist who consistently delivered new music to his audience. It's often covering a wide range of styles from pop and country to gospel and standards. It's thus securing a lasting legacy in the music industry. The sheer volume of his recordings also suggests countless hours spent in studios, collaborations with talented producers and musicians, a constant drive to evolve and appeal to a broad audience. Throughout his career, Pat Boone achieved significant commercial success with 38 of his singles breaking into the coveted U.S. Top 40 charts. This impressive tally of charting hits solidifies his place as a major figure in American pop music, especially during the 1950s and 1960s, when he was at the height of his popularity. Among these 38 hits, he reached the #1 position on 6 occasions, a clear testament to his widespread appeal and the resonance of his music with the listening public. Securing the top spot on the charts not only symbolizes commercial triumph, but also cultural impact, as these hits became defining songs of their era. It's played extensively on radio stations and influencing other artists. Boone's ability to consistently play singles in the top 40 reflects both his musical talent and the savvy promotion and management behind his career. One of the most remarkable and enduring records held by Pat Boone was his unprecedented run of consecutive weeks in the U.S. charts. Until the 2000s, he held the record for the most consecutive weeks with at least one single appearing in the U.S. Top 100 charts, a total of 220 weeks. This incredible feat illustrates a sustained period of popularity and relevance rarely matched by other artists. Staying continuously on the charts for over 4 years straight required not only the production of hit after hit, but also the ability to connect with audiences, across changing musical tastes and trends. This record highlights Boone's remarkable consistency and his unique position as a steady presence in the American music scene. Holding this record for such an extended time further cements his legacy as an artist who dominated the airwaves and remained beloved by listeners for an extended era in pop music history.